Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the House of Bloodstein, Mentralysis, Part 2, Chapter 3, The Infirmary. So last week, we got hit double-barreled with Mentralysis, the Hospitallers on the Gold Coast of HOBM, Rawl of Niles, and his assistant, the lovely Jana Del Lavi of the Jones, gave Kay quite a tutorial on the science of Mentralysis. Whenever an author has a lot of information to convey to the reader, in today's environment, the author can't just sit back as the narrator and just regurgitate all this stuff and create the infamous info dump situation where it's just page after page of information that's not really going anywhere. It's just either it's backstory or it's information that the reader needs, but the plot has ground to a halt. The story is not moving forward. And you're not supposed to do it that way anymore. That's how it used to be done. Tolkien did it that way. It was good enough for him, but I guess not for anybody else. So you have to convey information in such a manner that it fits into the story and keeps the plot moving. So that was my device to introduce the reader to this crazy science of Mentralysis, where one can speak to the unconscious mind. And apparently, according to the tenets of Mentralysis, every one of us has two distinct consciousnesses. However you say that. Inside your mind, you have the waking self. That's who you are when you're upright during the day. And there's the sleeping self, the one who's takes over at night, which is kind of a raw deal because they don't really get to do anything. They can't control their own body. Basically, they just dream. And these two consciousnesses are completely separate, and they may or may not be similar. In the Mentralysis lexicon, there are 7 archetypes. Depending on how similar you are, and most people are what's known as an SC, which is significant change, or an MC, moderate change, where there's a little bit of difference, but only through analysis and careful observation can you really tell. Once you get into the SC, then things are really different, but not too much so that two cells inside your mind are actually working against each other. Then you get the DO, or that's the worst one, where the waking self and the sleeping self are completely opposite. And such is the case with Lady Cressania of Bloodstein, who has the waking self is the tyrannical, despotic, maniacal Queen Gome, who is a wretched sociopath, and the sleeping self, who is Rothaba of George, who is as the Hospitallers kept saying, a saint. And they give the story of Mentralysis, how Wilhelm of Wham noticed that Queen Gome seemed to be remorseful of the things she did during the day in her sleep, and he invented a method to communicate with the sleeping self of Queen Gome and discovered Rothaba, who was a completely different person and who wanted to serve the people of Trumbull instead of the other way around, having them serve her, and wanted to undo the terrible things Queen Gome had done. And it almost would have worked had Wilmer of Sarander not returned, saw what was going on, and woke Queen Gome back up. And then Kay discovered that Queen Gome, Lady Cressania, whatever you want to call her, is immortal, and she's been alive for at least 6,000 years. But her immortality kind of is not very good. Her brain's immortal, her guts are immortal, but everything else lives and then dies and then rots. So after a while, she couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't talk, couldn't smell, couldn't do anything. She was just kind of alive, and she's gonna live forever inside of a rotten shell. And at first she tried doing like the Frankenstein technique of, stealing parts from other people and having them sewn onto herself. And then she came up with some other technique where it worked much better. It was flawless, in fact. And she could basically peel off her face like you're peeling an orange and stick a brand new, completely different face back on. Completely seamless. Sight perfect. All her senses perfect. And she even started experimenting with horns, with animal parts, with wings and tails. And she even turned herself into a man a couple times. She was known to do that. They called her the woman of 1,000 faces because she never looked the same way twice. Sometimes from morning to evening, she looked different. And the Hospitallers aren't quite sure how she's accomplishing this, but it appears that at the moment, Queen Gome is wearing our heroine, Lady Sammy Doran of Blanchford's face and her claws and Sarah of Blanchford's eyes. And when Kay discovered this, he was furious. He's like, my wife is somewhere a blank. They said yes. And then they further said that she was actually in their care at that very facility. And they gave him all this pre-information before telling him that so that he had some sort of baseline of information so he wouldn't go off all half-cocked, which he kind of did anyways. And their goal, since he is involved in this, is to assist them in recovering the artifacts of Wilhelm, a necklace and a headset. The necklace, when worn, keeps you asleep, basically. And the headset connects you to the Mentralysis network and it allows you basically to animate your own body. And they want to recover these items and make Roth above George live once again. Of course, they'd have to capture Queen Gome and put these items on her for this to happen, but that's incidental. And since Queen Gome's servants are also Hospitallers, they are the men and women of the Jones. Not all of them, some of them, but still it's quite a few. There's a lot of Jones. So a fair amount of Jones are serving Queen Gome. Just as a lot of Hospitallers from other sects are serving Rothabah. And Hospitallers can't go up against each other, and that's why they want Kay to do it. He's a hero, he's well known, even on HOBM, and they want him to go out and search for these parts. And they warned him, the Jones won't attack us, but they'll attack you. Better be ready. So when we left off, he discovered Sam and his cousins were in their care at that very facility, and he demanded to be taken to see them. And that's where we start in this chapter, Chapter 3, the Infirmary. So let's see where this takes us. Let's begin, shall we? They exited and crossed the room where the hologram of Roth above George was absent from the platform. The hologram of Queen Gome was now nude, her eyes closed, apparently asleep. They reached another lift, entered, and went down several more levels. The lift opened to a somber infirmary, sterile and cold. They entered a large white room. A thick, sanguine smell filled the air. "This is our infirmary, where we tend to these poor souls," Jana Delavi said. "The enemy knows we are adept at caring for these victims, and it benefits them that they are kept alive for as long as possible. As the body lives, so too do the stolen parts." At the far end of the room were several white, vaguely man-shaped capsules lined up in a long row. They hissed ominously, venting humid gases. Terminals situated around each capsule printed data in steady, workmanlike streams. Chancellors moved among the capsules, checking screens, clearing hoses, and making fine adjustments. One capsule in particular seemed to be giving them trouble and occupying much of their time. Alarm lights and warnings went off regularly, sending them into hurried activity. Kay cautiously approached a capsule, doing his best to stay out of the Chancellor's way as they worked. There was a square window built into the top of the capsule, situated approximately where a person's head should be. The window was rimed over with ice, obscuring the occupant within. Full of dread, Kay sighted through the metal case. Inside was the blank, sleeping form of a person, nude, covered with a light sheet. The face was blank, mouth, eyes, and ears gone, hands and feet gone. The breasts were removed, even the hair was missing. Who was this unrecognizable person? The only recognizable aspect of its body was its complexion and its general size and shape. The truth hit Kay. "Sarah?" he piped. Yana Del Lavi checked the terminal screens. "Yes, this subject is Lady Sarah of Blanchford." Kay was speechless. Machines hung under her throat and pulsating tubes plunged into her skin, supplied her with oxygen and nutrition. She lay there on her back, unmoving, so unlike the rolling, kicking, blanket-stealing Sarah he knew from their frequent sleepovers as children. Seeing her like this, Kay was overcome. "Oh God, Sarah," he whispered, his voice trembling. "What did you do? What did you get into?" Here was his cousin, his friend and lifelong companion, a helpless bag of nearly unidentifiable meat in a capsule. They continued on. Looking back once, Kay saw the screen attached to Sarah's capsule go blank. All of the scrawl of data littering the screen cleared by itself, leaving a single tiny phrase in the center of the screen. Kay zoomed in. It read, "Feelin' fine." As Kay puzzled over that, several capsules away, alarms sounded. The Chancellors rushed about. "What is wrong with that capsule?" Kay asked, concerned for the well-being of the occupant. "She's being stubborn," one of the flustered Chancellors said, adjusting the capsule's controls. Kay went to the capsule. "Who's in here?" he asked with dread, not wanting to sight. "Magistrate Kylos of Tusk," Yana said. "Kai too?" "Why the alarms? What's her status?" "She's fighting stasis, trying to wake up," Rawl said. "Is she in danger?" "For the moment, no." Despite it all, Kay chuckled. Stubborn and a handful. That was the Kai he loved. Dear Kai, always causing trouble. He felt a pair of hands touch him on the shoulders. Kay turned, and there was the tall, sympathetic hologram of Rothaba of George standing over him, proud and regal, a splash of glittering color in the otherwise plain white room. "Now you see, I have no words for this, Kay," she said. "I've seen this same scene unfold countless times. So many victims." She stood there, hands on his shoulders, the Finducers programmed into her holographic makeup, making her touch feel absolutely real via nerve induction. Kay wanted to be angry, to be enraged, yet even as a hologram, Rothaba carried with her a simple grace and commanding presence. He couldn't be angry with her. "Up at last, great lady," Kay said. "I am returned," she said. "If I might allay your fears, your cousin and your friend's dream right now. The magistrate's dreams are intense, fouling the machinery. Each occupant requires extensive custom tuning. My Hospitaller friends will get it right. They are dedicated and tireless. It's a small consolation, but she has no idea what has happened to her." "Where is Sam?" Rothaba pointed several capsules down. "There," she said. "There is your knee, Countess." At the end of the row, a quiet capsule breathed in regular gasps, slow data printed in time spasms. "And she dreams as well?" "She does." "And you are currently seeing through her eyes, hearing through her ears?" Rothaba winced a bit. "She does. Yes." "I wish to speak to my Countess. You have these magnificent machines that serve as a conduit to the sleeping mind. Prepare them. I want to speak to her immediately." Rothaba disagreed. "The wellspring of the mind is a complicated and unpredictable thing, Lord Blanchford. Her sleeping self might not be who you expect. She might be totally different. She could be a DO as I am. I would hate for you to have to experience that. I will ask the Chancellors to perform analysis upon her." "Analysis is not required. Awake or asleep, she is my Sam." Rothaba nodded. She turned to Rawl and Yana and, without having to say a word, they bowed to her wishes and exited. While he waited for them to return, Kay inspected the rest of the capsules. Two people Kay thought might possibly be Blanchford Castle staff members occupied the next capsules. A little body rested in a capsule farther down the line, large enough to be a toddler at best. Could that be Sebastian, Kai's son? His heart broke again. Kai's little boy. No Philip, no Thomasina. That was something. They appeared to have escaped whatever happened at Castle Blanchford. Dear creation. And then Sam, her lonely capsule at the end of the row. He couldn't bear to sight into her forlorn capsule. He didn't want to see what rested within. He didn't have the courage. Rothuba patiently stood by and allowed him to take it all in. He could smell her holographic perfume. How did this happen? Kay croaked. Several members of the Jones came to your castle. They were warmly welcomed. Your staff had no reason to suspect the Hospitallers of treachery. The Jones are masters of hypnosis. It was a bloodless attack. No one even put up to struggle. They passed into the Jones spell and meekly surrendered. They were then harvested for these parts. I don't know how the process works, but the results speak for themselves. What about Philip and Thomasina? Rothuba shook her head. I don't know. We have only what's before us. How did I escape? You didn't, Lord Blanchford. You fell into their spell along with the rest. Why am I not in one of these capsules then? You were to be killed. She commanded it. For with your passing, she shall have further access to the Blanchford fortune as your widow. She craves your money. She requires it. They marched you into a quiet area of the Telmus Grove. A quick sword thrust or bullet to the head, and that would have been all. You would have fallen and been found in the next day or so. As I said before, Leica saved your life. Why was Leica there? Because I asked her to be there, and she crouched in the cold for days, no food, no water. Though she is huge, Leica is quite stealthy, a trait Hlantha did not possess. Rahl and Yana, followed by several Chancellors, re-entered the room. They came forward and swarmed around Sam's capsule, hooking up cables, setting up portable terminals and other devices Kay couldn't identify. They worked with cracked precision. The speakers came up. Static issued from them, the Chancellors adjusting their equipment, causing the machines to sputter and pop. Rahl seated himself at a terminal and keyed in information. I don't have boost, he said angrily, causing the Chancellors to bustle about and check their work. They adjusted several cables and turned dials. Rahl seemed satisfied with the corrections. He called up a screen. There's the theta wave, nice and strong. Very skewed, very irregular, possibly due to her alien physiology. He snapped his fingers. Take notes! And the Chancellors obeyed. He adjusted several dials and cleared his throat. About, he said into the microphone. About, he repeated. More fine adjustments. Give me more beta, he demanded. The Chancellors took action. About, Rahl said again into the microphone. About what? Kay asked Yana as he watched the process unfold. It's a keyword meant to elicit a response, Yana whispered. We are tuning the connection, seeking the inner voice. It is exacting work, sometimes more art than science. Please, give us a moment. Rahl is a master Mentralysis, and he is very skilled at establishing a connection. Rahl said the word several more times. About. More fine-tuning. About. Then, like a ghost's voice, there was a machine-like reply through the speakers. About. The Chancellors stopped what they were doing and watched, as if this was the moment they had been expecting. Rahl flipped a few switches. Continue. No answer. More adjustments. Continue, he said again. Continue, came a response. Aftermath. Melancholy. Rahl seemed satisfied and stepped away from the terminal. The Mentralysis connection is ready. Go to the machine and speak into the left microphone. Remember, we have a standard RDP running, and your knee countess does not know what has happened to her. You would be wise not to say too much. The reality she inhabits at the moment is quite fragile. And, most importantly, keep in mind, we have no analysis on knee countess Samadoran at the moment. Therefore, we have no idea what she'll be like as her sleeping self. She could be an MC archetype, which is the most common. In Elders, that is. MC means moderate change, in which case you won't notice too much difference in her demeanor. She could, however, be an NC, an SC, or a DO, and be radically different when she is awake. You must be prepared for that possibility, Lord Blanchford. She is a monoma, and we have virtually no baseline analysis to fall back on. No textbooks to consult. We are, at this very moment, gathering the data. We are, at this moment, writing the textbooks for our posterity, and therefore every word you say shall be critical. What we learn here will help us better serve monomas in the future. Kay approached the portable deck, and the Chancellor technicians moved aside. This one? Kay asked, pointing at the left-hand microphone. Rawl nodded. Sam? He said into the microphone. Sam, can you hear me? No response. Sam? There was a clicking sound, and then, Kay? Came an excited voice over the speakers. Kay, is that you? It's me, Sam. The screens around Sam's capsule flashed with fresh data. Her heartbeat monitor increased significantly, her skin temperature rose, and her respiration quickened in a cone of steam. I have been so worried. I woke up this morning and everybody was gone. It was like a bad dream. I should be very angry, but I cannot be cross with you, Kay. I love you so. Where are you? I was called away. I'm sorry. I had immediate business to attend to. Such things happen. Sam sounded hurt. And you didn't get me? I would have liked to come with you. I know, darling, and I'm sorry. It was late in the night and you needed your rest after all that happened. I didn't want to disturb you. How is your neck? It hurts a little, and I'm having a little trouble with my nose. Your nose? I can't smell anything. Rawl flipped a switch and paused the connection. Her RDP is based on elder patterns. The sense of smell is the least concern in such cases, and her inability to smell is to be expected. It is not normally noticed. Sam's sense of smell is very keen and a vital part of how she perceives the world around her. Of course she'd notice it. We have taken note of that and will correct the problem for the future when dealing with monomas. We don't have a monoma RDP at the moment, and this session shall assist us in creating one. Please continue. You are doing well. He flipped the switch again. When are you coming home? Sam asked. Soon. This very day. I'm nearly finished. Would you like me to bring you a present? You're all I want. Kay glanced at the sterile surface of the capsule and placed his hands on it. A tear fell from his eye. He longed for Sam. Where are you right now, Sam? I'm in our favorite reading room, snuggled up on the couch, catching up on some reading. I'll not leave until you return. You know, I see many flaws in this pillow I embroidered. I need to make another one and do it better. Kay controlled himself and forced his voice into a steady state. It was your first attempt. Mistakes are to be expected. I cherish it because you made it. He heard the voice give a short laugh and then, Are you coming home soon, Kay? By dinner, perhaps? May I expect you? I'll try, darling. I'll try. And may we head south to the lake this weekend? I'd like to continue working on our jar. I cannot wait to be pregnant with our children, feeling them grow in my belly. I long for it. Kay put his hand to his face and wiped away tears. He couldn't respond. He was overcome. The Chancellors made a few adjustments to the terminal. Kay? Are you still there? The terminals flashed alarms and printed warning data. Rawl came up and flipped a switch. Steady yourself, Lord Blanchford, he said, struggling with this terminal. Her well-being depends on not suspecting the circumstances or questioning her RDP. Do not cause her further distress. Now proceed. He flipped the switch again. Kay composed himself. Yes, I'm sorry. I must away, darling, and conclude my business. There is much to do, and I wish to be home as soon as possible to share dinner with you. Over the speaker, Sam's voice reverted to Annui. I love you, Kay, and I love you too. Rawl ended the connection. Static returned. The lights on Sam's capsule reverted to random blinking. Vapor hissed from its tubes. Rothaba's hologram stood there silent. She touched his shoulder. Was she different, Lord Blanchford? Did you detect a change? Kay knelt down and hugged the surface of Sam's capsule, gripping it as hard as he could, pressing his cheek into the window glass. No, he wept. She was exactly the same. The Chancellors and Rothaba watched for several long minutes as Kay, a proud fifth lord, openly wept by the side of Sam's capsule, his body racking in spasms. He fell to his knees. Everybody stood there, watching the spectacle in silence. How many, he sputtered, how many have endured this fate? Too many, Rothaба replied. 1 life too many. 1 life too many. Kay stood and composed himself. He wiped his face. There is a machine I know, one that has the power to undo all of this. I shall use it now and save Sam and my cousins and friends. That will be the end of it. Rothaба shook her head. I believe I know the machine to which you refer. A wondrous creation of Lord Revis of Want. If I'm not mistaken, I'd know his work anywhere. I'm afraid your cousin Sarah told the Jones about it under hypnosis, and they used her to show it to them, to demonstrate it. She was very keen to learn more about it, to use it perhaps in her various schemes. They have your machine. What? She and the Jones stole it and other items as spoils of conquest. You're lying. The Chancellors milled about and reacted with a bit of shock. Rothaба smiled. I never lie, Kay. I am not her, and I never hide the truth either, no matter how much it hurts. I beg you not to forget your emotions, but to properly use them to make this a good end. Will you help us? I will not. I will take my countess and my friends and my staff members home and watch them in my care, and I shall determine a way to make this right. Your home is compromised and overrun with the Jones. I'm sorry things have come to this. I'm sorry I tried to warn you, remember? I warned you of the curse. And now here we are. Kay stormed out of the infirmary. Where are you going? Rawl asked. To the sisters, to the League ex-commons, to any who will stand with me and rally against this indignity. Our house shall go to war over this. Kay went down the hallway. Rothaba's hologram appeared before him, hands clasped to her heart. Your countess and the others will be lost. They will not, for I will extract their bond. He moved past her into the lift. She was waiting for him within. Not giving up, are you? He said as the lift began to move. I'm thinking of your countess, and of others as well. The sisters will set us back decades, our research impounded, our devices and materials seized, and your countess and your mentor and staff will be lost in the process. My loved ones will not be lost. If you and your people will not take decisive action in this matter, then I shall do it for you. 1 life, too many slumbers in those capsules. Rothaba was silent for a moment. Then she seemed overcome with emotion. 1 life, too many? She said in a pained voice. Shall I tell you about 1 life, Lord Blanchford? She placed her hand on the lift control panel and it ground to a halt between floors. Her hologram stood in the lift, weeping. My 1 life came and went centuries ago. My Wilhelm, how I loved him, the man above all others who heard my voice and risked his life to bring me into being. Just 1 life in centuries. I will love no other, and I watched him die by my hand. What does the Vif say about death, Kay? That our loved ones wait for us in the gallery of the dead. Does Wilhelm wait for me there? Knowing that I will never walk down that path, immortal in my loneliness, immortal in my guilt. And now, here you are, a Vith Lord, kin of mine, weeping over his wife. I have lived long and known many Vith Lords. I've seen them cry over fallen battlefields, over destroyed castles and squandered fortunes, over lost ships and dead colleagues, but I cannot recall ever seeing one weep simply for the love of his wife, as you have just now. We all have our 1 life, Lord Blanchford, do we not? Despite himself, Kay could not shield his heart. What do you want? He asked. I want to make right what she has done. I want to be free to atone. You have been to Wilhella's temple and lived to tell the tale. Leica too. We have never had such an opportunity. We have never been so close. You are not driven by a need for conquest and fame. You simply want your wife and kin back. And with such love fueling you, we couldn't possibly fail. What do I want? I want you to help us. Kay stood there in silence. Rothaba adjusted her gown and restored motion to the lift. It began moving with a jerk. The lift brought Kay and Rothaba back up many levels to the surface. The doors opened and there was Leica sitting at a table holding a glass of wine in one of her hands. Several plates of food had been brought to her and she had eaten the meats and the breads but ignored the fruits. When she saw Kay and Rothaba, she stood up. Jarl Khan, she said. What is your decision, Kay? Rothaba asked. He made up his mind. If, by helping you, I save Sam and the others, then so be it. You have my carg. Rothaba lit up. Leica? Lord Blanchford has agreed to help us. Leica lifted the glass she was carrying and tossed its contents back. Hail, Jarl Khan! We go! And with that, we conclude Chapter 3, The Infirmary. Kay goes in and sees the horror of the situation. He sees his cousin, Sarah, and Magistrate Kylos, some of his staff, Kylos' son, Sebastian, and, at the end of the row, Sam. So we see from this that the beginning part of the book, the dreams in the wailing room part, where Sam was wandering the castle, was her in this capsule, in a dream, in a RDP that the Hospitowers have written for her. What Sarah was doing there is unknown at this point. The Hospitowers RDP was built for elders, not for Monoma's, and Monoma's senses are quite a bit different, her nose is especially, so that's why Sam couldn't smell much of anything. But then curiously, she could smell everything just fine later on. We'll see what happened to make that occur. So, next week, we proceed to Chapter 4, entitled Sleep, with a question mark at the end. Kay has, after seeing all this, and after listening to Rothaba talk about her lost Wilhelm, the only man she'll ever love, and how she's so lonely in her immortality that even in death she could never join Wilhelm, and that he died essentially by her command, by her waking self, Queen Gome's command. How lonely it must be to face eternity without the person you love, and not even the sweet respite of death will ever change that. Kind of sad, but apparently Rothaba was able to get through to Kay and let him know not just he has been affected by this ongoing struggle with Queen Gome, but a lot of people have, and that perhaps with his help they can put an end to this, and he agrees to give her his Karg. So, next week we continue to Chapter 4, titled Sleep, with a question mark, and we see where the story takes us. Until then, this is Ren Presents. I'm your host, Ren. Peace out.